let's talk about your language backgrounds. I mean, what about literature and your literary backgrounds? You both must be avid readers. So what's the story there?
Well, right now I'm reading the Iliad and the Odyssey.
How does that not surprise me? Especially listening to that on A Dream Sea, which is very narrative heavy. It's got a lot of narratives in it. And I think all your work has that narrative quality, even when you're, I mean, there are instrumentals, of course, but it's really interesting that you're both smitten with storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. Narrative is the basic design. I mean, and the songs are almost all narrative. There's a few that are just more abstract, but mostly they're all narrative to some degree or another. And I just find that more interesting. I like to have, and that's, a lot of that comes from other songwriters that I admire as well. I mean,
talk about those. Talk about it.
Well, Joni Mitchell. We were talking about this earlier today. U2. Of course, people like Bob Dylan, going back a ways, Neil Young, and current people, Sam Beam and Jessica Hoop are two that are out there right now. And Amy Mann is another one. And I think a key thing is that we don't do a lot of lost love songs. We do mostly, although sometimes that's a backstory. But that's not usually the main element of the story. It usually very much tries to tell a story by a series of images. I really try to make concrete images too, and not really, I avoid saying how someone feels. I try to make you feel it for them, Right.
It's a very mature writing style. And that's why I say, again, it's so unusual to find it here in the Midwest because you get a lot of those songs that you've just described, of which I've written a few myself. So,
well, and that's great too. That's the thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. That everything, everybody does what they do. I mean, I was also inspired by Harry Chapin was a great storyteller.
He was a great.
And Choctaw Bingo. McMurtry. Yeah. I think that's one of the great, and also
Jim McMurtry.
Yeah, Jim McMurtry and the bridge song, 3rd of June, right? I can't think of her name. Tallahatchie Bridge.
Yeah. Bobby Gentry.
Bobby Gentry, right.
Yeah, that was really one of those first ballads that I caught when I was younger that just fascinated me. That Tallahatchie Bridge song. I thought that was
not a word wasted. That's the thing I really admire.
It is really
not a single word that doesn't take you to that sort of, heartbreaking, result. She described it as being a song about cruel indifference. The cruel indifference of her family as she's going through this devastation.
Exactly.
And it couldn't be, and it's so low key too. I just admire that, totally.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant. And really, Bobby Gentry did a great job with it. She is singing it.
Yeah, and it's like 2 chords, right? I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, those are a lot of our influences, And then the funny thing is, on the converse, we also both really like songs, not just from that period, but going back to the 1930s and that sort of thing.
One hears that in your work. One hears that. I mean, and beyond. I mean, you're on A Dream Sea. If I can get that one of those songs near the end. Let's see. Oh, Dream Sea Serenade. It's a tip to Stephen Foster, right?
Yeah, a rewrite of a Stephen Foster song, essentially, right?
Yeah, right. Which is, but the thing that I find that's really interesting is it's how hauntingly beautiful and how you've really taken ownership of what you do so well in every song you do, even if it has roots in other styles and forms. It's truly original and very well shaped and fashioned. And that is really in the spirit of the best songwriters. So I mean, I just feel the work is extraordinary. All your work.
Well, thank you. One of the things you really hit there was, I mean, I think, which you agree, Corinne, one of the main things that we always try to do, no matter what, is we try to make it uniquely our own, right?
Oh, yeah.
And not follow trends, and at the expense of like any effort at commerciality, but that's all right, because that's not really our goal. Our goal is to make music that we like to hear. I mean, I saw an interview with John Lennon way back when they asked him to give his like 5 favorite albums, and he included one of his albums in there. And they go, people will think I'm really arrogant to include one of my albums in my 5 favorites. But if I didn't like them, I would do something else.
Yes, right, exactly.
I thought that was great. Really inspired me to think that you should make music that you want to hear, that you're not hearing from someone else, right?
So clearly this has been I mean, you both have been absorbed with music from the beginning, and I've gotten a little of your bios before, but could we dig down a little bit more into those early years? Could you mind speaking about both of your orientations to music early on? And I also want to ask one other question, but let's go there first. And then while we're back in that time zone, I want to ask the question that I love to ask everyone. So, but first, let's go here with our musical backgrounds as early as you can remember.
Sure. Well, I think we have kind of a similar music background, obviously, but I started playing piano, taking lessons, and that kind of typical thing when I was 5.
And you were where at that time? Where were you living, here in North Judson or?
Bourbon. I'm from Bourbon.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, which, led to me. My brother is older than me, but, he's extremely talented. So he was always in a singing group, and he would make me accompany him when I was just teeny tiny kid.
Yeah.
And he'd have me playing. I remember he had me playing, was it Your Song by Elton John, when he was in a thing. Some people might remember the Now Singers. He was in a group called the Now Singers.
They were kind of like Up With People.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in that vein, right?
Yeah. But anyway, so I would be, so that put me right in there. So I, did a lot of accompanying for a lot of people. And then, of course, we both played brass then in high school band, of course.
Yep.
Which led to being in a rock and roll band when I was in high school with a great group of friends that still play music still. And I think you did a similar thing.
It's, there's hardly any point in me repeating mine, because it's very similar road, actually. And then when I went to IU, a big influence to me was jazz. Obviously that's such a big part of the compositional aspect of our music. And not that and the thing about it is, I love jazz music, but I'm just not good enough to be with those people. I played with them a little bit then, but they're so good. I mean, they're so amazing, but what I was able to do was to take some of the techniques and the harmonic structures and the theory of that and move it over into a kind of music that's more, pop, I suppose, but also folk and that kind of thing. And so that was a huge influence for me. Dave Baker was the professor at IU that I studied with, and I was like real intimidated, but I felt so good when he came to see my band play at the Bluebird one night, and I was just amazed that he would show up for for that.
How great is that?
Encouraging. Is that?
How great is that?
Yeah.
To have Dave Baker come to your concert.
Yep. And we talked a little bit there, and that was very inspiring, because he appreciated what we were doing, that we were, integrating. You might think that, sometimes somebody like jazz musicians or classical musicians, some of them are kind of like, well, I don't know what you're doing here. This isn't proper music. But, then you get people like that who are really the masters in many ways, and they're usually excited to hear somebody try something different with it.
Yeah. And am I right? You're from North Judson?
I am.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Corinne's from Bourbon, right?
But he brought me to the big city, North Judson.
And one of the most interesting things about this is that, you're both super talented and your music is so incredible. And you both continued your jobs and continued to make this sort of rich, textured music. I mean, not everyone would, I don't know if there are, how many, you might, it's just a hugely unique thing. You're both such unique individuals.
Well, I think we talked about that a little earlier today, but how to describe that, one of the, and I think of a couple things that, part of making your life balanced, right? Make your life balanced. And people, a lot of times they look at music as something that if you're not like, if you're not like Elton John or something, or, Kate, whatever, like selling millions of records, then you're a failure. Right.
Right.
And I totally don't agree with that. I mean, I admire that those people usually are really good,
yes.
But then there's people that that do it as an artistic expression in their life and are actually pretty good at it too. Just like there are people that make furniture or garden, right? And it's part of like even in chivalry and Bushido, both, the biggest, toughest samurai needed to also, write poetry or do flower arranging or, and the toughest knight, had to also learn to play the lute, in order to have a balanced life. That was part of their ethic. And I think that's a really valid thing that people have lost a little bit. I mean, we try to even be role models, frankly, in that regard, that we do that, regardless of what anybody says about it.
Oh, that's
because I think it makes people happier. I think people are happier.
Your influences run deep on this latest album. You've got all these collaborators with you. Talk about the collaboration process.
Oh, we love to collaborate with people. And, we were real involved, not so much lately, but I still have a lot of the connections with musicians from all over the world that we met through SoundCloud. That opened up collaboration opportunities that were great. And in many ways, I've collaborated extensively, and Corinne and I both have, and Corinne's collaborated with some different people too, that we never have met. We've never talked to on the phone. We've never had any connection with them at all, except, for emails and, sharing files back and forth. And these were pretty intense too at times. And it's great really, because you're able to, in particular, we worked with a guy from Pichi Sotomayor, who's a musician in Buenos Aires. We worked with him quite a bit. We worked with a couple of musicians and producers in Scotland in particular, right?
And Joseph
Hoke in that, in the mountains. He's from a family that it'd be great to get him at the Wild Rose Moon someday. He's a great songwriter, and he's from this family of traditional Appalachian musicians, but he's actually a professor now. And in fact, when I first met him, I thought, I saw the address that he was at Appalachian State University. And I thought, oh, so you're a professor there? No, he said, no, I'm a student, but he was so good already. It's amazing. He's written some great songs, and, he brings something to it that is really special. And I've played on and Corinne sung on his records, and they're great. He's a great songwriter. So who else can you think of? Brian Silaberto is from Chicago now. He lives in Tennessee. He's a really good songwriter. And, all these people have... Jens Felger, a classical guitarist who teaches in Germany, and that hip hop song on there. Yeah. He had been hired to write a hip hop song, which he's a really good classical guitarist and a teacher, and he wrote that, and he just put it out there for anybody to do. And it was a weird experience. I immediately heard. When I first heard it, I heard the whole song in my head, and I recorded it and sent it to him within about an hour of actually the first time I ever heard the thing. And when he first posted it, and he went, what? But it was like, I just knew immediately what it all was. And I just recorded it right then,
Oh, that's so great. What a great
I love that song.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best ones on it. I'm just really glad that you listened to it, because I think that our records get better each time.
Oh, I think this is just amazing. The whole piece. I mean, I guess if it would have come out when there was just vinyl, I think it would be an extraordinary classic. Back in the days, because it does have such a wonderful narrative sensibility. I think it would have been had its own cult following.
Yeah, we like it.
Not that you don't have a cult following, but I'm just saying, but back then you would have probably been. I mean, this is definitely stuff that some independent label back then would have picked up.
Your comment about the medium is a problem, though. Actually, it really is. I mean, we've kind of gotten. I mean, you would have thought that as technology moved forward, it would actually have been a good thing, but in many ways, it hasn't been, because, we can make a CD, but nobody wants a CD anymore.
I know.
We could make a vinyl record, but most of the people, like people around here, I mean, they don't even have a record. I mean, we're fanatical vinylists. I'm vinyl people, but they're few and far between. So we probably sell like 2 or something. And then if you just have it as a download, there's something about downloads. It's like they don't really exist. They're not real things. And they don't have the unity of an album that we grew up with, where, the Beatle album is coming out, Sgt. Pepper's is coming out. Everybody stopped, the world stopped for a day while everybody played it over and over again. And, they went, oh my God, look what we got, it's great. But now it isn't really an event like that. I mean, I know we're older, but I don't think it's an event like that for younger people either,
No, I agree with you. And I want to talk more about that. And what does that mean? How's that really reverberating? Will it mean that, is there some way intrinsically that will mean there will be more emphasis on live material and local culture? I wonder if it'll drive us back to those days or not.
It'd be nice if it did.
I mean, I think people that are doing things like you're doing are keeping it alive, but it really has become a niche product. Honestly. Well, and songwriting has a unique charm about it, because it's difficult, and yet it doesn't sprawl like a novel. I mean, you have a chance to play a 5-minute song for somebody once in a while, and they might they might give you 5 minutes of their time once in a while.
Right.
And so,
but not everybody's going to sit down and read your novel.
Right.
That's right.
And, and also the frustration of doing a song and then having nobody listen to it isn't quite the same as, putting 3 years of your life into writing, pouring your guts into a novel and then like 2 people read it. Right.
That's right. So if you had to summarize Overflown with 1 or 2 sentences, how would you do it?
What's the line from the Ode to the Overflown?
There's many lines.
It's the story of frustrated wanderlust.
Yeah, that sounds right. That's good.
And one little comment on that one, the song Ode to the Overflown, that's one I think we've only played it out like a couple times because it's so long. But, since you asked about literature, it's actually a Pindaric ode. I actually followed the rules for a Pindaric ode down to all the structures and the syllables and all that stuff. So that was kind of fun.
Man. So Blinking in the Brackets.
The next one's... that is Blinking in the Brackets. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
That actually has Tyrone Fair on it.
It does, doesn't it? We had to look at the playlists. That one has
Conjuring Steam.
Oh, Conjuring. Oh my gosh, yeah. Conjuring Steam, which was, talking about North Judson.
Yeah.
Literally recorded from our front porch when they had a steam train. I set up microphones on the front porch, and then we had a trumpet player come in and play along with that.
Mark Beagle played with us a lot.
The
He
late
passed
great,
away.
yeah, we just miss him so much. He was such, anytime you hear trumpet on our work, it's Mark Beagle, and he was such a great person to work with, such a sweet person. It's terrible. And in a way, that's kind of, I don't know if that's our favorite, but it's kind of like
I mean, I think it is kind of, it has a special place. And then what about From Ripley County?
From Ripley County. And,
you have to tell the story about From Ripley. Okay, so.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
We often use like some bit of a folk song as a point of departure. And there was an English ethnographer that went through Southern Indiana, and he documented dance parties in like, these real early pioneer days when people, couldn't get around.
Sure.
Yeah. They were like, it was a folk thing. And he illustrated the dances, and he wrote some of the words of the songs, but there was nothing about the music at all. Right. But there was this one line, and I went down to New Orleans, but I didn't, not New Orleans either, New Orleans. Right. Yeah. But I didn't mean to stay. My head got caught in a feather bed. I couldn't get away. Right. And that, I just love that line. And I wrote a new song based on that. And the weird thing about it is, when I went through all the stuff in my mom's estate, I found the a collection of books that had been my grandmother's, okay, who'd been into music. And she had that same song marked in this big collection of, the annals of Indiana history. And It just amazed me that song appealed to her too. And it's so obscure.
I mean, it was so obscure. Like the Indiana Historical Society put out this series of books that she happened to buy. I mean, it was just, that was weird.
Yeah, that was freaky.
That we found that, yeah.
And talk about the title song, or not the title song, but the first song on the album is called The Collector's Dream.
Oh, we're going to play that, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, we're going to play that one. That one got some airplay.
Yes, it did. Yeah. Well, that was one. I mean, you probably have had this happen to you, George, where you dream a song in your head, and then you usually I roll back over and go, I need to get some sleep. But in this case, I liked it, and I actually ran down to the computer and wrote it out and kind of charted it real quick, and I didn't lose it. And that song that's the song I actually dreamed that one. I didn't actually write it down. The whole thing happened just like that.
That's great. Yeah, that's are you familiar with Leonard Cohen's Tower of Song?
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that brilliant? What a brilliant song that is, and boy, that's a point that pretty much communicates that same kind of experience, really.
The song on that one, Platinum Moon, is one that I'm proud of in terms of just the composition of it too.
And how did it get born? How was that born? Platinum Moon.
from the farm.
Yeah, just from being out in the prairie. Actually, it doesn't really refer to that directly, but it's kind of a fantasy. But I just like because it's kind of a what would you call that? A bossa nova, and I love bossa nova.
Yeah. Okay, so I hate to move along to the Briars of the Brome, but I want to make sure I cover some notes about it.
Sure.
Well, that one is, that song, I feel like we're gonna play that one too. Actually, I think that's one of our best songs, and that's about the Midwest diaspora, and the lyrics, were inspired by Corinne coming back from working on a volunteer project to clean up, to fix up a cemetery. And someone had commented about, oh, gee, I don't know this name. You know how small towns are, a lot of times you see the same names, year after year, like on the North Chestnut football team, you always see Radke, right? And these names that are in these old cemeteries, you don't see those names. Those people, a lot of them moved on. They ended up in California or something. And that kind of leads to this whole story about the Midwest diaspora that's actually then set more recently, in a way, somewhat more recently. Yeah. Yeah. And I just felt like that one really said something, and I'm real happy with that. You know, once in a while you have a song that you write that you actually think is pretty good.
Right. The Midwest diaspora seems to be still happening. You know, I think of the narrative tradition you're in to some extent as being decidedly, really, if we want to trace back the region, yes, it's Midwestern, but it's also very Celtic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, you know, the probably the main place, in fact, that we collaborate with people is Scotland. You know, that, and in fact, the you know, or north of England too. You know, Scotland and the north of England in particular, right? And yeah, absolutely, that's a key thing to our background. And it's funny you mentioned that. One of the things, you know, is I feel like folk music and that sort of thing, and world music, Americana, it's regrettably overly influenced by the South. As much as I respect and love a lot of the, you know, like we're big Lucinda Williams fans, and you know, I mean, much as there's a lot of really good stuff there, I feel like, you know, that we've lost a little bit of the voices that are from the North. I don't feel like I should have to have a Southern accent. You know what I mean? Right,
exactly. And I guess I was also thinking, have you ever listened to groups like Pentangle? And
oh, sure.
Yeah, and also I even think of you know, Jethro Tull. Did you listen to some of that stuff?
Oh, of course, right. Okay. Who could not? Who, you know, I mean, Jethro Tull, and but also like just, you know, a lot of Canadians, you know, like Gordon Lightfoot.
Oh yeah.
And more recently, like other sort of northern type, like Decemberists,
Great Lake Swimmers.
Yeah, Great Lake Swimmers, exactly. And I mean, I think of Jessica Hoop as being kind of like that. She's in England now. She's actually from Arizona, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, or California.
There's a piece on A Dream Sea that almost borders on, I think it's Favorite Shot of Whiskey.
We're playing that one.
Yeah, we're going to play that one because it's...
That's great. Well, that song, Favorite Shot of Whiskey, borders. It's the only song that I hear. Well, there might be another one on another album, but tiny borders on country.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it is. I mean, it is set right.
Yeah.
In a limestone. Limestone Hills in the Moonlight. I mean, it is set in that setting.
But it's not quite
Kentucky
there.
Moonshiner. It reminds me of Kentucky Moonshiner.
There's Kentucky Moonshiner. There's another one. Yeah. And then there's also, I don't know if you know, Old Uncle Cletus is also.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know that song. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We're not doing that one. I like doing that one, too. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, but all of them have, in terms of instrumentation, kind of non-traditional country sort of feelings, too, in them. You've always added elements that make it sound not quite all the way there, you know.
Right.
Which is kind of nice, actually.
Well, you know, you're right. I think Favorite Shot of Whiskey could actually be done by a country band. If they could figure out the chords, though, they might get.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. It's the chordal arrangements that are so intriguing.
Well, we do, you know, we laugh because so many times I just turn everything into a cowboy song. So, I mean, we just like having that kind of like a, you know, swing.
That swing. We got a little swing too, yeah.
Yeah, plus you've got, Corinne, you've got that wonderful vocal that it could come right out of country. I mean, you could easily do a lot of country ballads with that beautiful voice.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's right in the right slot, you know.
I don't sing very high.
I think she's in the perfect range. I
like her range.
As a songwriter, it's like if I write a song that it's like a strain for me to get the note out, it's right in the middle of her range. I mean, you know, and so that makes it nice for me as a songwriter. I don't have to like, you know, write one that's really, you know, that I couldn't sing. I mean, I couldn't sing it as well, but I could kind of sing it at least, right?
Yeah. Well,
we did some covers on this one, which was kind of fun.
We did
on a
one.
dream
Oh yeah,
seat.
you did Days of Wine and Roses.
Days of Wine and Roses
Days of Wine
with
and
P.C.
Roses.
Sotomayor. Speaking of,
Yeah.
and I mean, he blew me away with that arrangement where he comes in because he plays the woodwinds in there.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's so psychedelic the way he plays it. I just loved it.
Well, yeah, that was when we were, you know, because especially on a dream seat, we were talking about who we're gonna ask to participate. You know, what would be a good, you know, because you want to mix it up. You don't want to have the same thing all the time. So that's when we said, Pishi would be great to do something on, and we both love that song.
When he sent that back, I was really knocked out because that transition where all of a sudden because he plays those clarinets, those big clarinets, like
Oh yeah.
you know, the baritone ones or whatever, and they all come in there, and it's like so Beatlesque, I think, what he did with it.
Yeah. I was trying to think about how to describe and talk about your music. And I think for me, it's so rich texturally. I mean, from a, not and textually as well, textually and texturally. So the music is very textured and has so many wonderful qualities to it and a richness about the way you compose. And then you have these great texts as well that go with them. It's quite astonishing. It's really quite profound. I think your work is quite profound.
Thank you.
Thanks. You know, another one on there that I will mention something about is Little Tea House. You know,
yeah.
You know, that one, interesting origin of that one. I was looking in a book. I was in a book. It was about Zen in art, and there was this ink painting of a person. I think it's from the Song Dynasty, that was walking down a trail towards and you can off in the distance you could see this fishing village, and the whole song just basically, you know, it's a story like if you were suddenly in that painting, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I even made a note about that, and then the brooding boulders. I mean, the whole language is rolling. And again, we're talking, you know, in terms of language and the way the language works in this song. Again, I talk about bardic traditions and Celtic ideas. You know, it's rich textural stuff and textual stuff, but it's such rich language. It is really quite something.
You know, one of the things about I really try to pay attention to rhyme schemes and rhythm, because when you have the number of words that we have, as you know, like the bard tradition, it's, you know, that is such an aid to memorization, you know.
Yes.
Because we always, you know, when we play songs, they're always memorized, you know, we never use notes on, maybe we do if we're playing somebody else's song once in a while.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Try not to. Yeah, because it's never as good.
I'm a stickler.
Right? It's never as good until you memorize it.
Yeah.